UK Crime Book Club. And here we have the Dangerous Dames.
We're not dangerous at all.
No,
not at all.
The pussycats, really.
Not if we like you.
So what we're going to do tonight is just an hour long, and it will be an informal chat with some questions that I will be firing at will at our I was going to say menage a trois. Then I thought I better not say that, but I've said it now, haven't I?
And we don't know what they are.
Yes, we try to think of something else to say that and not quite getting it.
Terrible trio.
Yes, that would have been better. Yeah, the terrible trio. Yes. Anyway, that's dangered it up already, hasn't it? There we go.
Yeah.
Hey, it's fun.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the authors introduce themselves very briefly, first of all, and I'll introduce myself, and then we'll just get cracking on with the chit-chat, I think. So given that I'm looking at that lovely blouse first, Wendy, would you like to go first?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm Wendy H Jones, and that H is frightfully important, because if you don't look up the H when you look it up on Amazon, you'll get a surprise. I do not write the same sorts of books as she does, trust me, is all I will say, because this is a polite place, even if we have been talking about menage a trois. We won't go down that route. Anyway, I'm Wendy H Jones. I write contemporary crime books, the Detective Inspector Shona Mackenzie mysteries, which have 6 books in the series so far. I write the Cass Claymore Investigates series. I've even brought some to show you, look, which is a bit of a miracle. This is Shona Mackenzie. This is the Cass Claymore series, which is a comedy series. It's basically a red-headed motorbike riding ex-ballerina who inherits a private detective agency and accidentally hires an ex-con dwarf and an octogenarian. And I also write young adult mysteries, and the young adult mysteries are the Ferguson Flora mysteries. They're going to a new publisher, so they're not quite available at the moment, but will be available very, very soon. The first 2 are being rebranded. When I say rebranded, they're getting new titles. And the third one, which is The Mystery of the Terracotta Warriors, is going to be available very soon as well. So they're the 3. I also write children's picture books, the Bertie the Buffalo series, but there's no crime in that. Nobody dies in Bertie the Buffalo, because it's for 3 to 7-year-olds, and I thought that might be a bit much. And I write non-fiction for authors, and I'm the president of the Scottish Association of Writers, which is an amazing, amazing thing to be. And I run the Writing and Marketing Show podcast. And at that, I will hand over to my somebody else in my terrible trio.
Thank you, Wendy. Very, very busy, multitasking all the time. We were talking about that earlier, just before we went live, actually. So next, thank you. We will go on to who? I'm looking right below me now. I don't know if that's how you can see it, viewers, on your screens, but Chris, next, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chris Longmuir. I'm sure you've seen me in the columns on UKCBC. I write 3 different series. I write a contemporary crime series, the Dundee crime series, present day Dundee. That's the first one. That's the second one. And that's the third one. I also write historical murder mysteries, my Kirsty Campbell mysteries. They're historical. They're set during and after the First World War. 2 of them are set in Dundee and 1 set in Gretna. The one set in Gretna has spies and saboteurs and all sorts. I even have a go at trying to assassinate the king in that one. So you get extra value with that one. So that's the series there. That's the Death Game, 1919. That's Devil's Porridge. That's the one with the spies and the saboteurs in it, and Death of a Doxy. So there's 3 in that series. I've just started a new murder mystery series, taking it a wee bit earlier, 1908 in Dundee, and it's a suffragette mystery series. And I had the bad fortune to publish this just as lockdown started the first time. And that's it, Dangerous Destiny. I think some of you on the group have read this one. It's 1908, it's suffragettes, 3 suffragettes trying to find the killer of their colleagues because the police aren't interested, because of course it's bad riddance, good riddance to bad rubbish. And if you're fed up reading crime, I do also have a saga. Now, I don't write fluffy. So this could be termed a romantic saga, but it's more a gritty romantic saga. It's not fluffy at all. No murders in it, but I'm not guaranteeing that there won't be any deaths. Like Wendy, I have a couple of non-fiction books as well for writers, and that's me. So I think I'll hand over to my other dangerous dame.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. And last but by no means least, Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie McClean, and all you have to know is I'm the good one. And before
That's debatable.
Who tells the most lies?
I introduce my work, I'm going to land you guys in it, okay? We did a trailer last week for this event, and we had to do it twice because the first trailer that we did, we got into trouble for talking too much. And after we filmed the one that we were allowed to keep, we stopped the recording, and Wendy went, I forgot what my series was called. So I thought I would just land you in it there.
I'll be 60 in 8 days, so I'm allowed to forget.
Yes. So on to crime fiction. I write the DI Donna Davenport series, and the first book in the series is Toxic. I've also got Shadows and Run that complete the trilogy. But Toxic is based on the substance that caused the Bhopal disaster in 1984. And it remains the world's worst industrial accident, where thousands of people died overnight in the accident in Bhopal in India. And I came to use the substance through quite a long process when I was writing the first draft of the book. And it just made me think, what if this stuff came here? What if this stuff was stored here? And it still is dangerous and volatile and can cause all sorts of chaos and tragedy. So that's what the book's based on. It's the race against the clock to try and find this stuff. And my lead character, my lead detective, Donna Davenport, quite keen to talk about her if folks are interested in that. But she's her character. She has bipolar disorder, and I went down that route on purpose for specific reasons. And there's quite a lot of the backdrop about mental health throughout the series. Again, I'm quite interested in talking about if you guys want to do that. But that's my series, and just remember, I'm the well-behaved one.
Thank you. Well, time will tell. Time will tell on that one. Okay. I need to introduce myself, don't I? I suppose that would help. Well, hello, everyone. Lovely to see so many people have joined us. I'm just going to say a quick hello to, there's Kelly Lacey. Hello, Kelly. Leslie Kelly. Valerie Koch. Hello, Marion Todd. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us. So my name is Ian Skewis, and I'm an editor and proofreader, freelance editor, and I'm also an associate editor with Bloodhound Books. So these are two of the most recent books that I've worked on. So Girl A by Dan Scotto and Rob Sinclair's Renegade. I'm trying to get that. There we go. I'm plugging everybody tonight, basically, as much as I can. And I'm also an author. And I wrote a best-selling novel called A Murder of Crows, which is here. And I also write short stories, and I publish these as little paperbacks. And these are available free on my website for subscribers. So I produce about 2 or 3 of these every year. I think this year there's about 4 coming out, and they're all different genres. So they're not all crime short stories, and they're free for subscribers. And they're available via my website, which is www.ianskewis.com. So you can just see it there. And there's going to be about another 2 or 3 of them coming out later this year. And there's no postage or packing fees for those books either. They're absolutely free. So first question actually comes from one of our viewers. So Samantha Brownlee has asked us, where did the name Dangerous Dames come from? She says it's a great idea. So over to you, ladies.
That was
that day.
sorry. That was actually Alex Gray at one of our Crime Writers Association lunches in Glasgow, and we were casting around for a name, and she suggested dangerous names, and we leapt on it, didn't we, Wendy?
Fantastic! I didn't even know that.
And that was the first time we'd met. Well, it was the second time we'd met Jackie. The first time we met Jackie is another thing altogether. We all had weapons in our hands,
We did.
real weapons.
Real ones.
I'm not kidding. They were the real McCoy.
I've posted a couple of those pictures on in below the wee excerpt we did to begin with. So there's a couple of pictures in that in below if people want to have a look at them.
Just in case you think we
they're
run around with weapons in our hand, we actually were at an armoury for a what was it? A Society of Authors in Scotland day out that I'd arranged at an armoury, and they were letting us use real knives and real guns and things, which is a really stupid thing to do with a bunch of crime writers in the room, really.
Yeah, we were being shown around this armoury and told all the safety stuff, and at one point I think we all just snapped and said, "Let's just have a go."
I've seen the photographic evidence. It's very scary. There's a scary picture of you, Chris, with a great big knife.
I'm not a scary person.
I know. It's sweetness and light, but underneath that exterior, very dangerous.
Somebody's asked, was there a noose too? It's me that's got a noose. I have a noose, you're right.
Yeah.
I have my own noose, and just in case you wonder what I do with this here noose, it doesn't move. And I do have permission of the police to have it. It's a display item. And it goes with one of my books called Killer's Crew, which starts with a man hanging from the... In fact, what happened was a friend of mine said, "Oh, Wendy, you're at a book signing. It's the most miserable looking book signing table I've ever seen in my life. You need a few props." And the next thing, she turns up with this noose. I was like, "Where on earth did you get that?" She said, "From the Tay Bridge, it's where I work." And I thought, I do not want to ask.
My God.
I really do not want to ask about this noose.
Wendy actually gave me a noose pendant for my Christmas one year, and she said that's a noose to hang myself with.
Funnily enough,
as you do.
I gave you a bloody tea towel, Chris.
Yeah, she gave me a bloody cloth as well. I don't have it on me.
No, we don't have swearing, remember.
I gave Jackie a noose as well.
Yeah, you did.
We've all got a noose pendant.
We do.
I don't. Why don't I have one?
You need a noose.
You have to get him one, Wendy.
I'm get you one. You'll get one.
I need one, don't I?
Seriously, noose pendant. It's coming.
Yeah, I do have one. I do have a hat though. Shall I?
Oh, please do. Show me.
Yeah, we need to see the hat.
There we go.
That looks like one of those things you wire up to electricity with.
I feel like I'm in the middle of a lobotomy. Now, this might look strange. The reason I have this bowl is because what I was going to do is, instead of just asking you questions, what I was going to do was get them from the bowl and just put them all in and danger it up a bit, because that's what I'm all about, shock.
Oh, no.
We have no idea what he's going to ask us.
And I don't have any idea what I'm going to ask.
He's putting the pressure on here.
It's going to be you.
Pressure. We can do it. We can do it, ladies.
We can do this, yeah, without breaking sweat.
I'll just slip in a follow-up story to the armoury when we first met.
Oh, yeah, please do. Yes.
I went back to the armoury because in the second book, Shadows, I was there was a scene or a few scenes involving guns, and I don't know the first thing about guns. So I went back up to the armoury, and the guy, I told him the backstory that I was interested in, and he told me some things that I could use in the book. And I went up, and he was showing me how to take the guns apart, put them back together, and he let me fire a couple of handguns, which was really scary. But as a souvenir of the day, he let me take away a couple of the spent bullet casings, and I just popped them into my pocket and basically forgot they were there. And at that time, I was working with social work, and part of my job involved going into the prison to visit, not to visit the prison, have meetings in the prison. And I went in for a meeting in the prison one day wearing the same jacket and completely forgot that these bullets were in my pocket. And as soon as I went through security, all the alarms went off, and the prison got put into lockdown. We got trapped there for about an hour and a half. That was the end.
It's a wonder they let you out again, Jackie.
Well, they didn't. Didn't they try to keep you in at one point because your
Yes.
fingerprints didn't exist or something?
Yeah, they had this machine where the first time you go, you have to give them your fingerprints. And when you come back
Jackie,
out,
didn't you say you were the
fingerprint
innocent
scanner
one
that
here?
lets you out. Except when I came back out, it wouldn't let me out. The barrier didn't open, which was a bit panicky. I was a little bit worried at that point. And why is it not letting me out? And they said, "Oh, your fingerprints don't match." How do you explain that? How do my fingerprints not match my own fingerprints?
I think the only reason you got
out because it's a men's prison, so obviously I wasn't a prisoner, so they let me out.
See, I don't think you're the nice one at all here. I think there's layers. We're peeling the layers of Jackie here now. I think that could be a novel title, couldn't it? Peeling the layers of Jackie.
Like that, yeah.
It's good. We could do this.
Sounds painful.
Right, I've got questions here. So,
Right.
Yeah.
so I've got the bowl of danger and I've got the spoon of clear and present danger. So I'm going to stir now, as you do. I'm making it's a recipe here, a recipe for disaster, probably, but
The disastrous things.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
right. So let's have a look at this. Right, this is the first dangerous question. I hope it lives up to the build-up. So let's have a look. Okay, is there a favourite area or place in your city or town or country that you love to use in all your novels, or would you like to use in a future novel, and why? That's a long question, isn't it? Who writes these things? Oh, me. Oops.
Shall I start?
So anybody
I'll
can answer
start.
that.
Basically, I live in Dundee, which happens to be, and my books are set in Dundee, which happens to be the murder capital of Scotland. So if you say to the police, you know, where would be the best place to dump a body in Dundee, they just go anywhere you like because it's already been done in real life. So, you know, but the place that people seem to like to dump the bodies the most, which is really quite, I don't know why, because it's harder for them, is the law, which is, it's actually, I'll say the Law Hill. It's actually called the Law, which is the old Scottish word for hill.
To be fair, that's probably where I would dump a body in Dundee.
Yeah, but the law is where they want to dump them, but they must have to drag this body up the hill to do it. You know, just go up the hill with dragging a body behind you. It just doesn't seem to, you know, as you do, and nobody seems to notice until they find the body 2 days later, you know. So the law is always a good place because people will go, "Oh, did you get that from such and such?" And, you know, I just made it up, you know. So,
I
actually thought Jackie was going to say that's actually where I've put a body in Dundee.
Well, she probably did.
As opposed to that's where I would do.
Don't tell.
I'm seeing a totally different side.
Your killers are more energetic than my killers, Wendy.
Oh, they are. There must be.
I'm up to favour the Howth. Now, the Howth is an ancient cemetery, graveyard in Dundee. No longer used, of course, but it's a lovely place to dump bodies. Plenty of bodies there already. A lot of history behind it, and it's just my favourite place. I think I've got a body dump there in the Death Game. I've got a body dump there in Dangerous Destiny. I like the Howth. One of my friends who's a romantic author, she writes romantic novels, and she's not as gruesome as I am. And she said that one of my books, she said it wasn't as dark as my contemporary ones, but at the same time, when she passed the house in Dundee, she crossed to the other side of the road. She wouldn't pass on the same side of the road.
I'm not surprised. Well, here's a question just off the top of my head. What is the most dangerous thing any of you have done? Now that we're talking about dangerous games.
Become friends with Wendy.
Yeah, that's on top of my list as well. You know.
The most dangerous thing I've ever done is actually run off a mountain with a parachute on my back.
Oh my God!
I did that in New Zealand, and it seemed like a really good idea till I got to the top of the mountain and looked off the edge, and I said, I've changed my mind. And the bloke that had taken, he said, the only way you're going down this mountain is on a parachute, so I suggest you start running. And you literally run and then launch yourself and hope that the parachute takes over.
Wow. And were you with, you know, when you see parachute jumps, there's sometimes one other person.
It was just me.
It was just you?
Just
oh
me.
my God, I could
and
never do that.
And a bloke at the bottom with paddles, and you just followed what he did. If he said, put your left arm up, you put your left arm up. If he said, But I have to say, it's the most peaceful feeling in the world. You can't hear a thing, not one thing. It's amazing when you're doing it.
It's just that ground racing up to meet your, you know, it's that.
That's really nice. I mean, I was under threat of death if I broke my leg or anything from the matron of the hospital.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of do what I was told. And he said, that was a perfect landing. Have you ever done it before? I said, no, I'm just terrified of the matron. She'll kill me if I break my leg.
I think I've been watching too many of these YouTube documentaries, you know, where you see parachutes crashing and near deaths and things. I've been watching too much of that lately as well, so that's still fresh in my mind. What about you, Jackie and Chris? What would be your dangerous moment?
Who wants to go first?
I'm not really much of an adrenaline junkie, so I'm usually dragged into dangerous situations. Usually by my childhood friend Sheena, who's much more adventurous than me. So we've ended up cycling over mountain ranges in the middle of thunder and lightning storms. Whitewater rafting down mountains in Turkey where they're not too fussed about health and safety. Being in a parasail on a boat with complete strangers who weren't licensed or anything. We just seem to tumble into situations when I go on holiday or trips with her.
And what about you, Chris?
I don't really do dangerous things, but I did get myself into dangerous situations sometimes when I was working as a social worker. And I can always remember the one that really gave me the willies was the snakes. We were taking these kids into care. Well, the kids were in care, and and I had to visit this family. And the guy had 3 massive pythons. Now it was a square room. There was a tank up one side, a tank up the other side, and a tank along the back. And the sofa sat in the middle between all these tanks. So when you went in, you were sitting on the sofa with snakes every side of you. And he used to take them out and let them, you know, curl around his body. And I was terrified of them. But you didn't dare let them see you were frightened. And I have used that snake room in my, which book was it? Deadwood. Yeah, Deadwood. There's a snake scene in Deadwood. When you read the snake scene in Deadwood, when you go in that room, I've been in that room.
Oh, that's scary.
I remember we had to go out and tell the guy they weren't going to get their kids back. The kids were going to get placed for adoption. And my senior came out with me at that time. It was just a basic grade at that time. And my senior came out with me and I said to her, now, whatever you do not show him you're frightened of the snakes. So we get in the room. We sit on the sofa, he has the snake out, and she made the mistake, she was sitting and she made the mistake of doing that. He laid that snake right up her leg.
Oh.
That was horrible.
Reminds me a bit of a tricky situation. I got into, I was running a creative writing session with the guys in the prison, and we had a room, it was a long, narrow room, and the table filled most of it. Chairs squeezed around the edges, and there was about 10, 12 guys coming to it. But they were all there later than me. So I went, stupidly, I just didn't think. I went into the room first and thought, I'll have to sit up at the back of the room, to the wall, because once the seats are filled, nobody will be able to pass me by if I sit in the middle of it. Didn't think. And then the guys all came in, and I suddenly realised there's me, a dozen of these guys, and then the door at the far end. There's no way I could get to the door if anything kicked off. Then these 2 big brutes are sitting right next to me either side, and but they were lovely guys, and they got stuck right into the writing sessions, and it was fine. But it was just that moment of horror. I thought, what have I done?
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Great answers as well. And we didn't rehearse this, did we, ladies? It's all improvised.
Well, I've never heard questions before.
I'm just going to stir stir something up here.
Stir up some more.
Wonder what he's going to come out with this time.
Let's see. Right, I have a question. Oh, okay. Oh, this is quite a good one. Is it fun or is it heavy duty writing novels? What drives you to do them? It's just madness, really, isn't it? I mean, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It's not easy. It's not
No.
easy to write a novel. You really have to want to do it to write. There's no, you can't write if your heart's not in it. So in one sense, I wouldn't say fun was the word, but you have to be really into your books. It has, I mean, with me, it's like an addiction. You know, if I can't write, I get the shakes. Yeah, I go into withdrawals. So you have to write, it's a compulsion. But I mean, it's not easy. It's quite hard work. What about the rest of you?
Well, apparently I get grumpy if I don't write, if I've not been writing, but I don't believe that for a second. But yeah, there's two sides of it. There's one side that's very disciplined, and it's a craft, an art, it's work. You have, you know, if you're writing a book, it's a long slog and it's hard work. The other side of it is this sort of thing, chatting with other writers, getting together with other writers and folk that are interested in books and reading, bloggers and so on. The whole community around it is fantastic, very supportive, good fun, and the research side of things is good fun as well. So there's a good fun side of it and the hard work side of it. So yeah, but you have to be very driven to keep going with it. So it's the long haul.
Yeah. Well, I would agree that you have to be driven, and it is a compulsion. You want to write. I love writing, but I have loads of fun as well while I'm writing because my characters take over. They just characters stroll in and take over, you know, characters I didn't want. Like there was a couple of Russian thugs turned up in book 2 in my D.I. Shona Mackenzie series, and I can't get rid of them. They're still there in book 7. And I'm like, are these blokes ever going to leave? And they're unbelievable. But I can have fun with that because they're twins. They're Russian twins. And D.I. Shona Mackenzie can never remember their names, basically because I can never remember their names. So she calls them things like the Bobbsey twins and, you know, stuff like that. And the Kalashnikov brothers, and because they're Russian, you know. And she just makes it all up, you know, the brothers Karamazov. And so you can do things like that. I mean, Cass Claymore, I had a character just strolling as bold as brass called Quill, Cameron McQuilleran. And Cameron McQuilleran is an ex-con dwarf. And she accidentally hires him because her friend who she has to find placements for cons that are leaving prison. And she just says that she'll have it, thanks very much, and dumps this bloke on her, Quill. Anyway, he's really charming to all the women. Of course, Kaz doesn't fall for his charms, but all the other women do. And what I didn't realise was that all the women in real life would, fall in love with him. But he was not meant to be in it. He just strolled in as bold as brass and went, I'm in your book. And I went, no, you're not. And he went, yes, I am. And I was like, well, I suppose you could be a minor character. He went, minor character? I'm your main character's sidekick. Come along, woman. I'm here. Quill's here. And that's what he's like. You know, that is what he's like. Sorry, I've just noticed in the questions, a lot of people are asking when the next Cass Claymore is coming out. It will be out very, very, very soon. I promise you. We're almost there.
Excellent. It is an obsession, isn't it? I find, you know, I've always got to write. I mean, I'm in a slightly frustrating position because I'm editing so many authors' books, so I've got so little time to write my own work, which is why I'm doing the short stories, because at least it gives me an opportunity to keep going in some shape or form. And I do hope to go back to long form work at some point in the near future. I don't know when that'll be because this year's very busy, but I agree with you, Chris, as well. It is like an obsession. You know, you kind of feel withdrawal symptoms if you don't do it. You have to be in it to win it, don't you? You really have to be passionate and enthusiastic about it, I think. Okay.
But Wendy's right about the characters taking over as well. Because when I started my contemporary series, I didn't mean Bill Murphy to be the main police character. I meant it to be Sue Rogers. But Bill Murphy strolled into the book, and elbowed her out of the way, and he says, get out of the way, you're my sidekick, I'm the main character.
Yeah.
And he's the main character.
It's funny what your subconscious tells you to
I
do,
know.
and then it eventually comes up to the surface and goes, right, no, this is actually what you're going to do next. And but it still takes you by surprise because it was previously submerged. You know, it just goes bang. It's like, oh, right, okay, I didn't know that was coming. It's a strange one, isn't it? Right, next question. Bowl, bowl,
Stir in the
bowl.
pot again.
Stir, stir, stir.
Drum roll, drum roll.
Bubble, bubble, toilet and shovel. That's the
Shaking
wrong
in my
genre,
shoes
really,
for fear
isn't
of
it?
what he's going to
That's
ask.
the
We are
horror
like the
genre.
three witches from Macbeth, I have to say. It's kind of a really good...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you mean you, Chris and Ian?
Cheeky.
No, I meant you, Chris and Ian.
Right, okay.
Chris is always trying to get rid of me.
I saw
Definitely.
that in the
Well,
photos.
that nice,
Yeah.
yeah. If
It's
the-
because
if
she
the ladies
bullies me,
and gentlemen
that's
who are
why.
here, sees
Oh,
the
yeah.
sees the picture, they see
Never.
that picture.
I was nice
She,
to him.
let's say she leans on me.
Like a heavy.
In a nice way, I might add.
Not always.
Honestly. Of course it is. I was very nice to you.
Blows.
Okay, right. Do you have any words of wisdom or advice that you can share with the future generation of novelists that are here with us tonight, perhaps?
Oh, heck.
It's quite a general
Go for
question.
it,
That
Jackie. You should start this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I suppose just some little
Yeah, I
bits
think
and pieces.
you need to know why you're writing and who you're writing for. If you're writing for publication and you want to go into commercial fiction, make some money, you really have to know the market, study the market, and write something that's going to fit with the market that you're interested in. But one of the most important things you can do is get involved with the writing community, especially crime fiction. There is a very vibrant, lively, supportive crime fiction community. Despite these miserable characters here tonight, everybody's very friendly and supportive.
Everybody else is lovely. It's just us
Everyone
four.
is lovely, yeah. But get involved with the crime fiction community. You'll find people will support you. They'll come alongside you. They'll help you, and it'll really carry you through some of the quite tough times that you can experience when you're writing a book. But that's what I would say is really important, is just to get involved.
Yep, absolutely.
Chris.
Anybody else?
I suppose really what you need is perseverance, and not giving up. I mean, some people write their first book, and if they don't get it off the ground right away, they never write another one because they think they've failed. And it's not necessarily the fact they've failed. I mean, it's very difficult to get published nowadays. And if you send your book round the publishers, I mean, you really have to have a hard neck and you have to have persistence. You don't have to be easily hurt. And it's at that stage you quite easily will say, oh, I'm not writing again because they don't like my books. And it's not the case. It could be for a variety of reasons. So persistence, perseverance, not giving up would be my tack. And the other thing, of course, is that because publication is so hard nowadays, well, it always has been hard, give yourself a kind of a time frame in terms of chasing the traditional publishers, because everyone wants to be traditionally published to begin with. I mean, I was traditionally published to begin with, but I publish myself now. But give yourself a time limit. Give yourself a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever time limit you give it to try the traditional route. And if you haven't struck gold by the end of that time, seriously think about doing it yourself, because it's not that difficult.
Yep, good advice, yeah.
Mhm.
And Wendy?
Well, my advice is you actually need to sit down in the chair and write. Because a lot of people say, I want to write a book, I want to write a book, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to write a book. To do that, you actually have to write. And that people forget that bit, that you have to sit down with a notebook in your hand or in front of a computer and actually do something. And the other thing is they'll say, I don't know where to start. Start with anything. Start with Once Upon a Time, if necessary, and go from there. Yeah, because you're not going to write until you start writing. Then your brain will open up, your imagination will open up. And a bit like Chris, her advice that you can self-publish, you can traditionally publish. I'm hybrid. I'm independently published. I publish through my own imprint, and I have publishers as well. You don't need to stick to any one thing these days. Things are different. Yeah, and there are people who, are very well established authors that then publish their own backlist themselves. So, for example, Alana Knight, who was the lifetime president of the Scottish Association of Writers, lovely, lovely lady. She died at the end of last year. She had traditional publishers all her life, but then she was self-publishing her backlist. And a lot of people are going for a hybrid model now. So don't fit yourself into a box, because there's no need for boxes anymore. Be who you want to be. If you want to write a book about serial killer mice on Mars, write a book about I think I might write that. Now I've got an idea for my next book. Write about serial killer mice on Mars. People will go, oh no, that won't sell. Do you know what? The place is littered with people who wrote books that were never going to sell, and then suddenly they sold millions and people sat up and took notice. Do it for you. Do what you want to do. If you've got an idea, run with it and just enjoy yourself.
It's very good advice, and I agree wholeheartedly.
And at the end of the day, making
said,
money isn't the main impetus for most writers. It's actually writing and getting your books out there. It doesn't matter a damn whether you make money out of it or not. Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I think something I've realised now being an editor is a lot of authors are with that first book, they're trying to find a foothold and they're still finding their own voice in the writing as well. And so that's why I always advise, you might not actually be a traditionally published type author, because that requires a certain degree of change in terms of, you've got to do the marketing as well. There's lots of different, I think it gets a bit more conservative as you go up into that traditional remit to a certain extent. So I think, as Wendy said as well, I think if you write what you want to write first and foremost, and then see where you fit, and that will take time. That takes time to do that. So absolutely.
The other thing is, if you go down the traditional route, you get put in a box. I mean, my box was contemporary thrillers. If I hadn't gone out and started doing it myself, my historical series would never have been written, never been published, because I would have been still in that contemporary thriller box. And I'm sure that would have upset certain fans of my Kirsty Campbell, mentioning no names in UK CBC, because they love Kirsty Campbell. But she wouldn't have existed if I'd still been with my traditional publisher.
Can I ask a question? And it's based on what Chris was saying, because my answer is based on what Chris was saying about payment and making money. Every time you go to a secondary school, because I've got young adult books as well, I very often go and speak in secondary school. Every single time they'll go, do you earn as much money as J.K. Rowling? I wish. I would really like to hope so. Is one of them. So and I am coming to the question I want to ask. But what's the strangest question you've ever been asked? Because the strangest question I have ever been asked was at a nursery school. Because of my Bertie the Buffalo books, I go into nursery schools as well. And this is the strangest question I've ever been asked as an author. Have you ever been to the airport in your pajamas? That's the strangest question I've ever been asked. What's the strangest question you guys have ever been asked?
I've never been asked a strange question like that at all. But I remember, I don't do many schools, but I did do a school once. I was asked to do a school. Don't know why. And I said, you do realise I don't write children's books, don't you? Yes, but they just want to know what an author does. So I went along. And the question that kept popping was, how old are you? And they asked it in a variety of different ways, and it always came back to that. But how long have you? How old were you when you started writing? How old are you now? And they were so tied up with how old was I, and I kept skirting it.
Obsessive questioning.
I'm not as old as Wendy.
No, nobody's as old as me. I'm heading up for a big birthday where you get a bus pass.
She's not contradicting me there.
I'm not going to argue with you tonight, Chris. I'm not in an argumentative mood. Just you wait till I get you alone, lady.
She's just getting that nice.
Oh, quaking.
So what's the strangest question you've ever been asked, Jackie?
I tend to steer clear of children, so I've not been asked very many.
Apart from why have you got bullets in your pocket?
Just trying to think of if my grandkids have asked me any odd questions about the books, no, they've not really. No.
I can't think of any either, I have to say. I've not.
That's unusual, no.
As an author. Okay, well, good answers, and that's good advice for our our authors who are, and our potential new authors who are watching as well. I'm going to do away with this spoon now. It's getting a bit passé. I'm going to use my fingers,
Oh dear. I
It's
hope
going
you're
down
sterilised,
rapidly.
Ian.
This
Things
is
are
the way
going
I
downhill,
roll,
guys,
ladies and
sorry.
gentlemen, yes. Right, what do we have here? Okay. What authors, past or present, have inspired and influenced your style of writing? You'd all see each other.
I wouldn't say that any of them had influenced my style, although I do like to put a puzzle in the middle of my thrillers, in the Agatha Christie kind of style, the puzzle element where you give all the clues but you hide them, and people are able to guess who the actual killer is. Not all thrillers do that, but I like to do that. So I suppose you could say Agatha Christie influenced me in the kind of puzzle element, because I love a puzzle element. I love a twist. I like reading writers like Geoffrey Diva because he's so good at the twists. But I mean, you developed your own style. I'm not sure. I mean, to copy someone's style would be a real mistake because you would never be able to bring it off, I don't think. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you others think?
My Cass Claymore book is kind of half meant to mimic. Have you ever heard of Janet Ivanovich's Stephanie Plum series? Stephanie
Never
Plum
read
is
them.
a hapless bail bonds woman. She's absolutely useless. I mean, when I say useless, I mean useless. Yeah, and her sidekick's an ex-prostitute who should be wearing size 24 clothes, but fits into size 10. So she's always using spandex that she squeezes into. So I thought, Cass Claymore, the idea came up. I thought, well, I fancy writing a humorous book. I wonder if I could write a Scottish Stephanie Plum-ish, although we don't have bail bonds women. So I came up with a different character, but she kind of half influenced me. So it was that sort of humour, but it's different from hers as well. But I'm pleased to see that a lot of the American reviews say, oh my goodness, this is a Scottish Stephanie Plum. So I've obviously done what I set out to do. But I will say the first book is called Antiques and Alibis. The second one is Blood and Bones. The third one is going to be Cluster of Corpses. Where is this leading me?
Dangerous
ABC. This means I have to write 26 books. I might get fed up by age.
And we were fighting over the title for the D one, weren't we?
Oh, we were. But I think I won.
I think that's the same problem that Alan Parks must face, because he's doing the month, he's going up every month. So I think his latest one is the April Dead. So I can't wait to see what he does for May, June and July,
He goes into lockdown.
Who influences you, Jackie? Apart from us, of course.
I think I was just thinking back to when I first was writing Toxic. Well, the book that I wrote before Toxic, when I started writing seriously for the first time. My day job then involved a lot of writing. It was a very writing-based job, writing work reports. And I was studying at the same time, so academic writing. So when I was writing fiction, I actually did quite a lot of reading other fiction books just to get my head out of report writing mode, out of academic writing mode. And it was books like John Grisham, Dean Koontz, obviously American writers, but I felt they were very clear writers, and I liked the clear, uncomplicated way that they wrote. So I took a lot of note of that, and I thought it's actually okay to write in plain English when you're writing fiction. You don't have to be all flowery and extravagant with it. So that's what I tried to just adopt, a simple, straightforward writing style, and try to avoid anything convoluted, because I don't like to read it. So yeah, I'm not keen on writing it.
I think we've got some questions in the chat, but somebody's asked, how does a dangerous dame celebrate a significant birthday? Well, for my sake, we're still in lockdown because my significant birthday's on the 22nd of April, and we're not allowed out until the 26th. So I'm not going to be doing a whole heap of a lot, but I would have gone abroad, but we're not allowed to go abroad. So in true Dangerous Dame style, I'm going for 5 days in a caravan in air in May. I mean, really, how can you beat that, ladies and gents? It's impossible. It's impossible. I'm sorry.
That's dangerous.
What else would you do to celebrate your significant birthdays, guys?
Well, I had my 50th last year, and I didn't get to celebrate it because of this damned lockdown. And I had so many things planned. In fact, Kaylee Lacey, I was going to have a night out. In fact, and Jackie, I think we were all supposed to have a night out. And then this dastardly thing happened, and so now I'm trapped. Help, inside this box, literally. So I don't know. I mean, I'd still like to. I think me and my parents, because I've not been able to see my parents since it all started either. But I would like to do, because they don't have the technology either. So I phone them all the time. But I would just I'd like to do something, a bit mad, a bit outrageous, just to celebrate getting out of the end of this long dark tunnel. That's for sure. Doesn't have to be the birthday. Anything will do now. I'm easy.
We need to have a massive party for all.
Oh yeah.
Patricia Forsyth saying in the comments.
I mean, I think it's what everybody will be doing.
Patricia Forsyth saying she's 65. She needs a big party. I need a 60th birthday party. You need a 50th birthday party, and we could celebrate it all together. We could have a massive party somewhere in Scotland.
We can paint the town red with lots of blood.
We could.
Well, I haven't had a significant birthday for quite a while, but usually what happens on my significant birthday, and it's stopped being a surprise because they've done it 2 or 3 times now, I get kidnapped by my granddaughter, who has arranged the whole family to be at some venue. And there was one time they took me up to Inverkeeler, to the one at Inverkeeler. Oh, it's quite a, he's quite a renowned chef. And they took me along by the Lunan Bay. And they had balloons all along the road as we went, and they had to point them out to me because I didn't notice them.
All the effort wasted.
I know. They must have gone out the day before and planted all the balloons.
Some poor soul is blown.
So I get kidnapped on my significant birthdays.
What about you, Jackie?
Yeah, well, this time 3 years ago, I was moaning my head off at becoming 50 shortly. So I spent my entire 49th year moaning about turning 50, and when I actually turned 50, I just loved every minute of it. So we'd hired a venue, a part of a nightclub, the club that Ian and I sometimes went to before lockdown. We had a space in there, got some folks together. We slightly over-ordered the cocktails, and I only remember part of the night. And there's a photograph, and I don't know quite how it happened, but there's a photograph of me wearing a Britney Spears outfit at the end of the night. And I don't know how I got into it. but the parts I remember, I really enjoyed it.
Leslie Kelly, who's also a member, is something else that we're a member of. What else do? We do the Murder and Mayhem crew.
Murder and Mayhem, that's right.
We're the Murder and Mayhem. Well, Leslie Kelly's part of the Murder and Mayhem guys, and she's saying she's missed out on a 50th birthday too. We're sensing a theme here. Party.
Yes,
I think
we're all
so.
missing out, but
I think so.
We're counting down the clock, I suppose, until it's all over and we can just go out again and be our usual dangerous selves, I suppose. So.
We seem to have gone off a crime writing here, then.
Yeah, we have. So let's get back on it. I've got a question. What are the common traps for aspiring writers?
Common traps.
Common traps.
Discuss. Traps.
Aspiring writers.
Common traps.
Yeah. Things they maybe you shouldn't do that you sometimes get into.
Kill cats. Kill dogs.
Don't kill
That's a genuine one. Actually, don't kill an animal in crime writing. They don't like it. Readers don't like it. Yeah.
And don't make things up. Realise this was one I had to realise, and thankfully I sorted it all out before the first book came out. English law and Scottish law is different. I knew a lot about
Ah.
English law because I taught English nursing law and ethics at university down in England. So I strolled up here and wrote a crime book thinking it was all the same. Then I discovered it was all different. So I had to go through the book and get all the Scottish law right, the proper names, and like there's no JBH in Scotland. So, you know, make sure you get things right, but to be honest, don't get hung up on it because, you know, somebody will say you've got it wrong and you can change it, but, you know.
Yeah. It's one of the good things, I suppose, about, I think it's easier to change mistakes now because of the short print runs and digital. So it's not such, well, I mean, it's still very important to get it right, but it is easier to go in and fix it nowadays than it would have been, you know, with your big long print, expensive print runs. Yeah. Any other advice?
I sometimes I'm a judge in writing competitions from time to time. So I get to read a lot of short stories that the folks submit. So you get a lot of people, aspiring writers, going into these competitions. So you come across similar mistakes time and time again. I mean, you get to feel quite superior because you get to criticise other people's writing and forget that you're subject to that yourself as well at times. But one of the most common flaws that I see is just overwriting, just overdoing it, and you don't really have to overdo it. You can leave a certain amount to the reader's imagination. You don't need to overdo a scene, and also backstory. Think very carefully about how much backstory you include early on in a story, because again, you can develop drop-in clues about a backstory and a reader will fill in the blanks. You don't have to spell it all out. But I think if you read a lot of crime fiction, you'll kind of pick up, I think, what works and what doesn't if you're writing. And yeah, expect to put in the graft, expect the long lead-in, don't expect everything to happen quickly. I was very surprised when I first got my offer of publication. I was very surprised at how long the process takes. Obviously it's different with self-publishing. You can control your own timescales, but if you've got somebody publishing your work, it can take a long time, and you've constantly got people saying to you, when's the book coming out, when's it coming out, and you have to keep saying to them, I don't know. But yeah, be prepared for the long haul and don't expect things to happen quickly.
Yeah, but when you start to do it yourself, you can get them out quicker. But publishing, I mean, it takes you about a year by the time they take it and the time you get it out. But I mean, the other thing, of course, is, you know, people shouldn't expect to get published with their first book. I mean, it was I'd written my fourth book before I actually got published. So I had 4 books, although they've all been published since. But I mean, I certainly had written 4 books before I got the publishing deal. Mind you, if I'd gone to the self-publishing route earlier, I could have had them all out. But then again, you know, the traditional route, I mean, it's what everyone wants, and it does, you know, you do break your teeth on it, and you find out whether you like it or don't. I mean, I particularly don't, because I like the control. I mean, with Deadwood, they changed my title, they didn't consult me on the cover, they just said, this is it. They asked me, 107 words, I think, when I put it in, and they told me to take 7,000 words out, and then they told me to put another to add extra bits, and then I had to take another 7,000 words out. So, you know, I can do without that hassle.
Can I just say, there's somebody saying hi, Wendy. Unfortunately, I'm not getting to see your name.
I don't know who
just
that is.
Facebook user.
Yeah.
So if you could type your name in, I'll say hi.
Yeah.
Unless you want to remain anonymous, in which case, hi.
So good advice. Something I find as an editor is if the timeline isn't working, if it's not accurate, then the structure of the books tends to fall apart somewhat. So I always say to authors, when I'm editing, always check the timeline. That's one of the first things I'll do as I'm working my way through the book. And if that all slots into place, the structure of the book hangs on the backbone of that. That's something I've spotted. Right, we've only got about 6 minutes left. Do you think we've got time for one question? One quick one?
We can do it.
Before we can do it. We're dangering it up. See, we're running out of time now.
Close
What
to
are we
the
going to
wire.
do? We're
Pressure
going
on.
to
We're
die.
living dangerously.
Right, what have we got? What's that? Again,
Jackie's
a
poised to
long-winded
answer
question.
first.
Sorry.
What was the
Yes,
question?
okay. If you had an opportunity to write a novel in another genre, what would you choose and why? Do we like that question? I can get another one.
Go
Well,
for
I've
it.
written in 2 genres. Well, I've written in 3 if you count
Yeah.
historical as opposed to
Yeah.
contemporary.
Sorry, I thought
Right,
Jackie
well, I
was
get another
answering.
question because that stumped everybody. Like,
I
do you have
didn't
a
hear the
favourite
question
character
right
in
because I
your
was
novel?
sorry.
And if so, who is it?
It's
What was
what,
that?
sorry.
Who's your favourite character in your novel?
In our own novel.
In
Cass
our novels.
Claymore, Cass
Yes.
Claymore and D.I. Shona Mackenzie. D.I. Shona is
Mhm.
feisty. She doesn't take any prisoners. And Cass Claymore's hopeless. I like both of them. And Bertie the Buffalo. I like them all. Bertie's awesome.
I want to see Bertie as a killer, though, as well. I think you should do an adult range of
Did you not
Bertie.
suggest Bertie's Bloodbath as one of the next books?
Bertie's
Yes. That was off camera.
I
yeah,
might
forgot about that.
kind of, pitch that to the publisher and see what they think.
Yes, that'd be interesting.
Hi, Kerry. It's
Oh,
Kerry. It's not
that
whose
Facebook
name's
user
not
is
coming up.
Kerry. Hi, Kerry.
Well, I'm glad you're
Yeah.
here. Nice to see you.
Well, my favourite
What about you?
character in my novels is my Kirsty, of course. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
But I must admit, I do have a wee favourite in my contemporary ones, and he's not who you would
Mhm.
think it would be. It's my Mr. Big, my gangster. I kind of have a soft spot for him, Tony. In fact, Tony is the main character in the new one I'm writing, the one that I'm stuck in the middle of. But I do kind of like Tony. He's vicious.
Uh-huh.
He does nasty things, but he's also got a soft side.
Mm.
My favourite character has got to be Donna Davenport. She's a complex character, like I said at the start. She's got bipolar disorder, and part of the reason for writing her character like that is a kind of a pushback against the use of mental health as light relief almost in crime drama and crime fiction. So Donna, she's dealing with her illness. She's aware of it. She's aware of what people think of it and the kind of discrimination that she might face. But she holds down this job and she's good at what she does and works extra hard to overcome the obstacles with that. And so there's that side, and her partner Libby as well. I really like her character because she is the person who has a partner going through a mental breakdown, and so I could explore through her character or express through her character what that's like. And for me that made the books much more personal. So Libby's character, I suppose, was much more like me, and her experience being in the position of watching your partner go through something really rough made her character much closer to me.
Good. Okay, thank you. We're almost at the end now. We've got about 2 to 3 minutes. So the last thing I wanted to ask you all just before we sign off was just to give us an indication of what you have coming up next, any exciting news. So we'll go with Wendy first, if that's okay.
Right. Bertie the Buffalo will be out any minute now. The publisher tells me it will be the 21st of April. So I'm hoping then it's called Bertie at the Worldwide Games. And I really like it. Killer's Curse, for all those that have been asking, the 7th Detective Inspector Shona Mackenzie mystery will be out. It's imminent. As will
Great.
Blood and Bones, the 2nd Cass Claymore, as will the 3rd Ferguson Flora mystery, which is the Terracotta Warrior, the mystery of the Terracotta Warrior. So I have 4 coming out soon.
Wow.
So, in other words, warn your bank managers, guys.
Fantastic. Thank you. Chris, next.
Well, as I said, the work in progress at the moment, I'm right bang in the middle, about the 40,000 word mark. And it's Tony's the main character. He's the gangster. He has a nightclub in Dundee. He has a team of pole dancers, and he wakens up in one morning in bed with a dead pole dancer. And that's where it starts off. But I'm not
As you
kidding.
do.
He didn't. It's possible he didn't kill her, but he wakes up next to her, just quite a mess. You know, she's been battered silly.
Oh, okay.
But I'm right bang in the middle of that one. But it's how he's going to get himself out of this pickle, you know, in fact, because I mean, the police are not going to believe he didn't do it, and they've been looking to bang him up for ages anyway. So even though they know he didn't do it, they'll still bang him up. So he's got a problem on his hands. And I'm bang in the middle, and I'm not sure just how I'm going to get him out of a sticky situation.
Cool. Brilliant. And what about you, Jackie?
I'm actually working on a brand new series at the minute, so I'm giving Donna a wee break, and I'm working on a series set in Glasgow, and we've got Detective Inspector Morgan O'Malley in Glasgow, and she's come over from Ireland, joined the Met in London, and for one reason and another, which becomes clear throughout the series, she's on a final warning, and she relocates to Glasgow. Joins a new team there in time for a new murder investigation.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. And I've got 3 books coming out later this year, the second half of this year. So I've got 2 more short story paperbacks available on www.ianskewis.com.
Yeah.
I can't see myself there. Is that on there? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've got a novelette coming out after that, which I'm keeping under wraps for now, and that's potentially the beginning of a novelette series as well. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. You've been marvellous. Thank you to everyone who joined us tonight and watched us get all dangered up. And thank you to Caroline Maston at the UK Crime Book Club.
Yep,
Thank you and good
everyone
night. Thank you.
Thanks to everybody for coming and for hosting this. Thank you, Ian.
Yay!
Thank you,
The
and
host
thank you.
for the most.
Yeah.